Hi, Quest seniors. It's Joe Bailey here, day before Thanksgiving, and wanted to wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving. I know some of you are working remotely today, and we're not meeting as a class on this evening before Thanksgiving. But I wanted to share with you some thoughts and comments based upon last week's presentation and some of my follow on discussions with the other instructors as well as some student teams. I guess I'd like to couch my comments by giving you some suggestions on what you can do to kind of reach that project of the year quality with your 490 project. Again, we have a little over 3 weeks to go. I'm sorry, a little over 2 weeks to go before we present at the Quest Senior Conference. And it's always amazing to me how much improvement goes on in these 2 weeks, especially given the fact that there's Thanksgiving this week and next week when we get back at it, it just seems like the time goes quickly. But that said, let me go ahead and give you some suggestions, and I've no doubt that every team is going to go ahead and get a chance to improve and hopefully attain that project of the year quality. So the first thing is the visuals. I know that many of you have visuals in your presentation. Some of you have words, some of you have numbers. Really focus on some of the visuals. It's at this point of the semester that you get a chance to get some feedback from other people on what the visuals look like. Is it telling the right story? Is it telling the best way possible? I think some of the visuals that you had in last week's presentation were a little confusing. I think some of them may have been a little busy. I think some of the presentations could have used visuals in different places, but seemed to avoid it. So always think about the visuals that you can use in your presentation, and it's going to help you with your storyboards as well. Remember that your presentation structure should not follow the way in which the semester went. So we don't need to hear about what happens at September, October, and November, and then finally in December. Just tell us kind of what you're going to tell us. What's the main kind of conclusion or takeaway or recommendation? Then go ahead and tell us and remind us what you told us. Whether or not it's the dress rehearsal that's going to happen on December 5th or the final conference on December 6th. People are going to be hearing lots of presentations, and always a good idea to tell us the key message at the beginning of the presentation, lead up to it, and then remind us what you told us. Be specific with your numbers. I think some of you were hedging your bets a little bit by talking about many or using the words a lot. Again, you have some specific numbers in your analysis. Use them. If you have a range of numbers, because there is no one number, you're doing an estimate, go ahead and give us the range. When you use some specific numbers, it really gives your project, I think, a sense of not only legitimacy, but a real sense that you have a strong feeling and understanding about the way in which the project and kind of the recommendations or the numerics, the analysis kind of all hang together. Gives the audience some confidence in you. Be aware of unintended consequences. So clearly in systems class in 390 you learn about the idea of an implications wheel and the notion that systems that are designed that take into consideration some of the unintended consequences and actually use them as positives as opposed to negatives are a good thing. So the unintended consequences are the things you should be aware of, because these are things that your audience might say, well, they haven't considered this or that. I thought many of the recommendations actually had some positive secondary or tertiary consequences of your results, and I think it's okay to talk about that, especially at the end of it. If there are some issues with some of the unintended consequences, just again, a heads up, beware of that. Think about the generalizability of your findings beyond the scope. So what you're recommending clearly is going to be done within scope, but there are ways in which the things that you did within scope may affect things outside of scope. For example, if you design a product in one particular market, those same design, characteristics or requirements could also be used in some of the other product lines of the same company. If you're making recommendations for a particular setting, those other settings that might be similar may have some similar implications. It will allow us to go ahead and understand not just how you solve what's in scope, but how you can take a look at things outside of scope. And while I'm on the subject of this, let me also talk about change management. So all of your recommendations are hopefully going to have a positive change within the organization. And it's a good idea to go ahead and talk about how the change would actually be implemented on a tactical level, not just the strategic issue of what the recommendation is. Again, it gives us some notion that your findings are not just specific within the domain of the scope and giving the recommendations, but they're going to have some real traction within your client. When you present, be sure to maintain your objectivity and understand whatever the criteria are for evaluation. In other words, when you present to your audience, think of us as skeptics. And then when you present, you're not trying to sell us something, but rather you're on our side. You were skeptical at first, but because of your hard work and understanding and your objectivity, you came around to this way of seeing things. This will help give an instant connection, I think, to your audience, make the team come across less as sales-like, but more as real kind of researchers, analysts, reluctant kind of recommenders. And I think it helps maintain some credibility with your audience when you maintain that level of objectivity. Confidence. One of the great things that happens over the next couple weeks is your confidence will increase tremendously about your project. The more times you iterate, the more times you tell your story, the more that you use your teammates to go ahead and boost your feelings of confidence. In general, I think it's important to take your project seriously. Just don't take yourself so seriously. There's a difference here. If you stand up in front of an audience and are able to go ahead and say, we really believe in these findings, here are the results, this is kind of our objective analysis of what's going on, be really rigorous about that, never poke fun at that. But it's okay to poke fun at yourself. Boy, I wish I knew this, earlier on in the semester. It would have saved us a lot of time. That type of thing is okay, but don't poke fun at the results. You can poke fun at yourselves. But you will become more confident as you practice with us. Word selection. I was surprised how much of a casual tone was used by some teams. Again, not all teams in your presentations last week. So beware of this. Make sure you take a very professional tone, a very serious tone in presenting the results. Try to avoid saying things like "you guys" or even I would say some words that might actually be perceived the wrong way by your audience. So I try to stay away from gender-specific words, like manpower. Or assuming that the person is a he, but also beware of saying a lot or you guys, things like that also kind of convey a casual tone, and you actually want to be very professional. Think about your slide selection. When I saw many slides being presented, there were some slides that were up there. I kept asking the question is, why are they spending time with this slide? How important is it? What's going to happen over the next couple weeks is as you add more slides, you're going to have to start taking away slides too. Probably a good idea for every slide that's in the deck for your teammates to ask each other, why is that slide in there? How does it advance the story? How is it going ahead and making a compelling case? And arguably every slide that you have there should hopefully advance the story even a little bit, but if it's not sufficiently or significantly advancing the story, it may be that the slides don't belong in there. And while I talk about your slides, I'll also say on behalf of Professor Ashley, please do put slide numbers on all of your slides. So to think about some of these recommendations, I do encourage all of you within the team to watch your video. Probably a good idea also to take a look at the timestamps just to know how much time you're spending on each of your slides. Again, you want to go ahead and make sure that you're allocating your limited amount of time among the slides that you're presenting in a very reasonable way so that you're not spending tons of time on things that aren't as important to the story that you're telling. And the last thing, and perhaps most importantly, is have fun with it. I told the teams that I met with earlier this week, but I will tell all of you that I think your work that you've done and the stuff that all of your teams have are really, really significant. You've really addressed everything that's in scope and have done a good job. But when we scope out these projects with our corporate partners, we always make sure that we say 20% of the project is the students. It's not yours to go ahead and scope out. So please do take these next couple weeks and have fun with it. Try to go ahead and find out if there are ways in which you can change the presentation, the content, the types of recommendations that you would make, even if things may be a little bit more off the wall. Go ahead and have fun with it, and I think that fun or that sense of fun that you would have is going to help improve your presentation. If you think of things that may be a little bit too far afield and may upset your client, we should probably talk about that. But as long as it's staying pretty close to scope and it's something that you've been wanting to do for a while, feel free to go ahead and do it. Enjoy it, and I think your presentation will be better because of it. So with that, I will just say thank you very much for your time and attention. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we look forward to seeing you next week.